All right, first graders, we are starting our heart stitchings today. So to begin this project, we are going to trace our heart onto our pink tag board. And you can use your Sharpie marker for this. And I am using one hand to keep my tracer nice and flat. And I'm just going around tracing as best as I can. And then keeping that tracer on your pink paper, I'm going to move to the cardboard. And all these little points or dots, I'm going to poke a hole in my pink paper. So I'm not poking it on this tracer, I'm poking it on my pink paper. Just a little poke, and you can kind of hear it go through the tag board or the cardboard. And I'm doing this all the way around. And then I can give the tracer and the cardboard to another friend to use. When you have this done, or if you are somebody who is waiting patiently for the tracer, you can head to Mrs. Cleary's table and find the yarn that you'd want. Mrs. Cleary might be busy tying knots on the yarn, or there might be some for you to choose from. So you get to pick the color you'd like. To begin the stitching part, you can start from any hole on the circle. I'm going to start by poking from the back. So I'm thinking about this like a swimming pool. And I am under the water right now, and I'm coming up for air. So my needle's coming up from the pool, and I'm pulling, and I'm pulling, and I'm going to pull until I have just an itty-bitty tail. At your tables, you will have some different kinds of tape. I'm going to tape this tail kind of to the edge of the paper so that it stays on there. Okay, so now I'm above the water in the pool, and I'm going to find one spot in the middle of my heart to poke my needle in. And it might be helpful if you poke it with the tack first. So while my project was on this tracer, I probably should have poked that hole in the middle to help me out. But I got my needle through, so now my needle's going back in the water, still in the pool. Pulling, 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 pulling. Now I'm going to come up for air from the pool, and I'm coming to one of the notches right next to that point. It could be either direction. So I'm going to flip it over, and I'm sewing up, going up in the water, pull, 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 pull. When I go down, I'm always going down into that middle point. Pulling, pulling, pulling. Now when I come up, I'm on the edges. So I'm looking, and I'm just going around my heart to the next point. Pulling, and I'm going down that middle point. And the important part is to keep pulling that yarn so you don't have any loops. If it gets stuck, just kind of grab it. Some kids like to go around the edge of the pool. We never want to go around the edge. We are always staying in the water. So I'm coming up, pull, 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 and I'm going down. If you get knots in your yarn, find Mrs. Cleary. She will help you. If you run out of yarn and you need to get more to finish, Mrs. Cleary can help you with that as well. We're just going to tape the end of our yarn like we did here, and we can start with a new piece. So where am I at? I'm under the water. I'm going to come up. So I'm going to continue. When I come back, I will have an almost finished project, first graders, and I ran out of yarn. So if I did it, I'm guessing you might run out as well. So when you can't go any further, cut off the needle, another little piece of tape, and I'm going to tape. I don't want to tape over here where I know I have to stitch. I'm going to tape this little end up here where I know I'm already stitched and I'm done. So if you run out of yarn, you can head up to Mrs. Cleary's table. She will have some extra needles and yarn tied together for you. And what I'm going to do is I am going to come up again in my next notch. And I'm pulling, 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 and I'll need to tape that little tail. So I'm still keeping my same pattern, always going down in the middle and pulling up on the edges, down the middle. At the very end, you're also going to need to cut off that needle and tape the last edge. You will need to return your needle to Mrs. Cleary's table. You'll need to make sure that your name tag was taped onto your project, and then we'll put them in a pile at Mrs. Cleary's table. So here I am on my last stitch down through the middle, and I have that extra yarn. I'm going to trim it, tape it, and I will return this needle to Mrs. Cleary's table with my project.